Hello, and welcome to B-Loan Ready. ARM loan payment adjustments. Okay, I've got good news and bad news. Bad news is, there's no way to sugarcoat this one with a bunch of funny, and things may get a bit complicated. The good news is, you get to listen to this silky voice describe adjustable rate mortgage loans for the next couple of minutes. Lucky you! Our main mission, since you did click the play button, is to show you how ARM payment adjustments work. After all, we want to empower you with information so you are aware of the risks and can move forward with confidence. Just a quick recap before we begin. A fixed-rate mortgage is sort of the vanilla ice cream of the mortgage world, where the interest rate and payment on your loan or mortgage note remains the same through the term of the loan, as opposed to an adjustable rate mortgage where the interest rate and payment will change over time. Please see the glossary of terms in the Knowledge Center if you're not picking up what we're putting down. The CFPB says that for you to compare an ARM loan with a fixed rate, you need to know about indexes, margins, payment options, interest rate caps, and how much your maximum monthly payment could be. And that's not even the whole picture. You will also need to have a basic understanding of how an ARM loan works. Hopefully, it's been at least a half hour since you ate last because we're about to go for a swim in the deep end of ARM loans. No water wings, but don't worry, you got this. An ARM loan, or adjustable rate mortgage loan, is appealing to some consumers because ARM loans generally provide a lower initial interest rate than fixed rate mortgages. This lower initial interest rate comes with risk, and that is where the adjustments come into play. The lower starting interest rate on an ARM loan is generally referred to as the initial interest rate, and it remains in effect for a limited period. This limited period can be as short as 1 month or as long as 3, 5, or even 7 years. Okay. We know what you might be thinking. I can have that lower rate for 3, 5, or 7 years? Yes, that is true. But before you get excited and sign up, let's talk about the next phase of the ARM loan, the adjustment period. With most ARMs, the interest rate and monthly payment change during the adjustment period. For example, a 5/1 ARM loan can be translated like this. The loan has a fixed interest period for the first 5 years, and then the adjustment period begins, with adjustments happening annually thereafter. Meaning, just because it begins with a lower interest rate doesn't mean it will be so affordable in the future. You still with us? Need smelling salts yet? You're doing great, champ. Keep those gloves up. To understand how an interest rate is calculated on an ARM loan when it adjusts, we need to understand two ARM loan components, the index and margin. The index is added to the margin to create a fully indexed rate. The index is a measure of interest rates generally, and the margin is an extra amount that the lender adds to the index for the fully indexed rate. Lenders can base ARM rates on a variety of indexes. LIBOR is a common index, which you can look up on the internet, and stands for London Interbank Offered Rate. Always ask your lender what index is being used, how it has fluctuated over time, and where it is published. There is great information about this topic in the Consumer Handbook on Adjustable Rate Mortgages, which can be found at www.consumerfinance.gov. To finish setting the rates on an ARM loan, lenders will add points to the index rate, creating what is called the margin. This amount may differ from lender to lender, but it is usually constant over the life of the loan. You may be a visual person. After all, you are watching a video. So I think it might be time for a visual example of this interest rate conversation. Let's say the index is 1.5% and the lender's margin is 2.25%. These two numbers get added together for your ARM interest rate. So 1.5% plus 2.25% equals 3.75%. And bam, just like that, 3.75% is your interest rate. Remember that 2.25% margin will generally stay constant for the life of the loan, but the index is always moving with influence from the money markets, economy, and other outside economic influences. Now, all we have to explain at this point is interest rate caps and life rate caps. Before we do this, let's stick with our example from before to pull everything together. Let's assume we select a 5/1 ARM. Remember, the 5 means our fixed interest period is for 5 years. The 1 means our ARM will adjust annually after the fixed period. Let's also pretend our 3.75% interest rate is our initial rate. So, we're good to go, with an interest rate of 3.75% for the first 5 years. Life is sweet. Puppy dogs, rainbows, chocolates, riding a bike downhill, you get the picture. Now let's enter the next year, where the adjustment period begins. Beginning in the 6th year, our mortgage payment will have either gone up or gone down depending on what the economic market has done in regards to the index. Remember, the index is the variable that has economic influences. This index gets added to the margin to form the new interest rate in which your new monthly mortgage payment will be for the entire next year. Let's use our info from a previous example. Years 1 through 5 interest rate was 3.75%. Index was 1.5% plus 2.25% margin. In year 6, the index is now 2.5% and our margin, which is constant, is still 2.25%. So, 2.5% plus 2.5% equals a new interest rate for the next 12 months of 4.75%. Now, it is important to know that ARM loans can adjust both up and down, but can they adjust by a great degree? Well, that answer is relative. And to better explain this, we'll introduce our last elements of the ARM loan, which are interest rate caps and life caps. Periodic adjustment caps. These caps limit the amount the interest rate can adjust up or down from one adjustment period to the next after the first adjustment. First adjustment caps. Some ARM products have a first adjustment cap that limits the amount the interest rate can adjust up or down the very first time the loan adjusts. Lifetime caps. This cap limits the interest rate increase over the life of the loan. By law, virtually all ARM loans must have a lifetime cap. Remember that 5-1 ARM? Well, ARM loans will generally have 3 more numbers. Our 5-1 ARM may look like this: 5-1 ARM, 525. That 525 bit of the equation explains the caps. In this example, the first 5 is the first adjustment cap. The next number, 2, is the period adjustment cap. The final 5 is our lifetime cap. Let's throw all of this together in our example, and then get you out of the deep end. It's been a long day at the pool. Our ARM loan choice was a 5-1 ARM with 525 caps. Our starting initial rate is 3.75%. The rate is calculated by adding the index to the constant margin, which in our example was 2.25%. When thinking about interest rate markets where rates are going down, keep in mind your rate will never go below the margin, which is considered the floor or the very lowest rate possible. On the other end of the spectrum, there is a limit in how high the interest rate can adjust, so let's look at our lifetime cap, which in our example was the third 5 in the 525 set of numbers. This means the initial interest rate of 3.75% plus the lifetime cap of 5% will make the maximum highest possible interest rate of our ARM loan 8.75%. 3.75% to 8.75% is a big swing. But that can't all happen in one adjustment, right? I mean, you talked about periodic adjustment caps. Well, in our caps of 525, the first 5 is the maximum first adjustment up or down. So in theory, if the index increased by, say, 6 points from the time your loan was originated until the first adjustment, you could be faced with an interest rate of 8.75% in the first adjustment year. Now, keep in mind, after the first adjustment year, your interest rate can never adjust up or down by more than 2, which in our example is that middle number of the 525 cap information. Keep in mind, your interest rate can never go above the lifetime cap limit, which in this example was 5%, or a total interest rate of 8.75%. ARM loans have advantages, but they come with risks you will need to weigh. The CFPB asks you to consider the following questions when considering an ARM loan. Is my income enough or likely to rise enough to cover higher mortgage payments if interest rates go up? Will I be taking on other sizable debts, such as a loan for a car or tuition, in the near future? How long do I plan to own this home? If you plan to sell soon, rising interest rates may not pose the problem they do if you plan to own the house for a long time. And finally, do I plan to make any additional payments or pay the loan off early? Phew, this was a tough one, but thanks for sticking with me. I hope you feel armed with a lot more knowledge. Get it? Armed? Anyway, as always, should you have any questions, don't forget to hit the help button, and a friendly mortgage mentor will be right there to assist you. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.